Hi, Zainab.
Erin Lee is an elementary school teacher and artist living in Long Sault, Ontario. She graduated from the University of Ottawa with an honors degree in fine arts and visual arts. During her undergrad, Erin specialized in drawing, painting with a fascination in portraits. Art continues to play a large role in Erin's life as she develops a small paint party business, sells her work, and participates in art shows within her community. Erin has now found a new love of illustration, beginning with illustrating her own book, Maggie the Magnificent. Erin has written short stories and novels since she was a child. As a young student, she idealized authors such as Robert Munsch, Dr. Seuss, and Roald Dahl. Having adventures of her own that she wanted to share, Erin began to write stories herself. Erin's love of literature is what inspired her to become a teacher, so that she could share her passion for reading and always be surrounded by books. Erin currently teaches kindergarten, and though at times she feels like Miss Frizzle with her wild avant-garde lessons, she adores her students and often draws upon memorable classroom moments in her stories. It is also through childhood stories that she addresses important topics such as bullying, inclusion, and anxiety within the classroom setting. She believes that no matter how subtle or minuscule these issues may manifest within the classroom, ensuring that they do not go unheard is crucial for the growth of a child. During her spare time, Erin plays in her all-girl band on sunny restaurant patios and competes in duathlon, triathlon. She plans to complete her first marathon next spring. Erin has published 3 books in total: Maggie the Magnificent in French and English, Out of Season, and Benjamin and the Backyard Beast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Are you ready for the interview?
I am.
You're indulged in fine arts, visual arts, and writing. Most people who are creative tend to be more emotional. How do you see the world at present?
I definitely have a unique view on the world, I think. So I view every experience as a creative opportunity and a learning opportunity as well. So yeah, I take issues that happen in class, things that we experience, both positive and, maybe not so positive, and I spin them to, create stories about them essentially. So that's what I've done with many things that have occurred in class. That's what I've done with the humor that you see in my 3 children's books. Those are real life things that we've experienced, and I put them into books. And as you know, I teach kindergarten, so we do have a lot of funny situations on the daily. And then I've taken a lot of crucial issues that needed to be addressed. And, since I have that creativity, that background, I was able to write about them. And then, of course, in Maggie the Magnificent, I was able to illustrate about those issues and spin them into something creative and artistic and something that I could share with everyone. So, art has really become my outlet for the good, the bad, the ugly, and turning them into something beautiful, really. So that's what I've done with these children's books.
That's a beautiful journey.
Thank you.
As a young student, you idealized authors such as Robert Munsch, Dr. Seuss, and Roald Dahl. What do you think these authors had in common?
I think they really just knew how to connect with children. They've all got this creative imagination where, they'd create these worlds with endless possibilities. And I remember as a child just somehow finding a way to relate to these crazy stories. Somehow they just were able to connect with these children, with these fantasy worlds. And I remember thinking, wow, like a giant peach or a troll or a witch. Somehow they could think the way a child thinks. And it really just helped me to connect to the text. And I found myself emulating parts, elements of their writing in my own stories.
What was your favorite book as a child?
I really liked The Witches. I was a witch every year for Halloween. I think for about 7 years. And I loved that book. And I was so excited when it got turned into a movie.
That's so cool. Since
Mhm.
you're also a kindergarten teacher, was it easier to start writing?
I think to initiate the writing, the creative process, that was easier. I have 29 kindergarten students. It's never a dull moment, and they just inspire me so much. They're hilarious. I absolutely adore them. So they influence me a lot to write stories for them and about them. So I've been teaching for about 7 years now. I do have my specialist additional qualification in teaching kindergarten. So, which means after university, I took many other courses to get my specialist specifically in kindergarten. And I think that really helped me. It helped to sort of boost my writing. It was a catalyst to, understanding how children think, being able to relate to them more. And of course, I put that into execution because, as I said, I've been teaching for quite a few years now. So the experience mixed with the qualifications, I think, really helped to get started on getting in the mind of a child and how they think, because I work with them every day. So I had that idea. And then of course, after writing, there was an entire process about publishing, which I don't think anyone could have really prepared me for. I think I just had to spend years working on that. But these children definitely do inspire me to just be creative every single day and want to keep creating stories for them.
I really love what you do.
Thank you. Me too.
Thank you. Is it difficult or easier to write an illustrative book than a book containing text only?
This is a really good question. I really had to think about that. So when I was working, I took a lot of courses on how to write a book. I went to a lot of conferences, and then of course, I hired some really good editors, and what they all told me was you need to make every word count. So every sentence, every single word needs to correlate directly with what your overall message is. Whatever point you're trying to make in your story, you need to ask yourself, does each word, do I need this word? Do I need that word? Does it, support my point that I'm trying to make? So with a picture book, um, you might only have one sentence on that page, but you need to say a million things with only saying very few things. So you need to also think, when you're writing that manuscript, and of course you're writing it over and over and over and over again, you write it and then you really buckle down and you take away and you take away and you take away and you ask yourself, how can I say very many things by saying very few things? So I finally got it down to, the minimum. And then when you write your manuscript, you need to go over and you need to write your illustrator notes. So that's where in my illustrator notes, I can say, okay, I might have said it was a stormy day or it was a bad day in my one sentence on my page. Not saying it has to be one sentence, and then you need to think, what do I want to tell my illustrator to say? Now, your illustrator obviously has their own creative process. You need to trust them, but that's where you need to really depend on the picture to say, okay, the picture itself might say, they were wearing a sweater in the picture, so they're cold. There's a fire in the picture, so maybe the power was out. You don't have to technically say any of those things. You need to let the picture do it. You know, maybe they're all upset. You don't even need to say they were all upset in the photo. You need to trust that the photo is going to do that. So it's a lot of like you sort of having your side notes for your illustrator saying, please depict this and this and this. And then, of course, trusting that your illustrator is going to do that and then getting the picture back and just going back and forth with the illustrator. Can you tweak this? Can I make this suggestion? And then also going back with your editor, going back and forth saying, do you really need that extra word? Can you say this instead because it's a children's book and let the illustrations do most of it? So that's a really tricky point because I've never written a novel before, but I do understand that you can put a lot more description into it. So you could say, so and so was crying, they were wearing a sweater, it was drafty in the house. You can say all those things, but when you write a children's book, you really need to cut it down to the bare minimum, which is a lot trickier than you would think.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. What is your book, Maggie the Magnificent, inspired by?
So Maggie is actually a book that I wrote about 6 or 7 years ago. I was teaching abroad for my first year. I had just graduated from university and I said, you know what, let's go abroad. I'd actually moved there with my sister. She was doing her master's there. And I went with her and I taught for a year. And then I came back after a year. It was a great experience. But I decided I needed to start my career back home. So I started teaching back home. And by then, I had taught such a variety of children, even after those 2 years of teaching, from basically around the world, because when I was abroad, they had all moved from around the world. And I'd met such a variety of children. And I just thought the one thing that I see in common is that if these children only believed in themselves, they could just move mountains, but they really just need to have that confidence. And some of them did, some of them didn't. And if they just really had that fuel and somebody pushing them, then they could do anything. So that's when I started to write Maggie the Magnificent, which is also available in French. Later it came out in French. It took me years to publish that book. I pitched to every traditional publisher, everyone, and I got a lot of rejections, as expected, because nobody wants to take a chance on a debut author. They all want to know that they can make money off of you. So, the chances are very rare that you're going to make it. And then I took a little break. I was a little bit discouraged. And then it wasn't until the pandemic where I tried to get into some old goals. I never gave up. I just thought I needed a break, which sometimes is okay. And I picked it back up again. And I pitched to a publisher who I thought would be a good fit. They were a traditional publisher in the States, and they told me that they wanted to publish my book. And I sent them some sketches. I'm not an illustrator. I do have my fine arts degree, but it's not in illustrating. It's in realistic self-portraits of adults, not illustrations of children. So they're two very different things. But I sent them some sketches because I thought, at that point, it had been years since I had written the book. I had so many images in my head. So I sent them the sketches, and Maggie was actually based on a real character. She's she's not little anymore, but she was little at the time. She was a girl that I taught dance to, and she was a very intelligent, quirky, clumsy little girl who I just thought, that's my Maggie. Her name isn't actually Maggie, but she does have bright red hair. And so she was the girl that I wanted in my book, which is this girl right here. And that is my cat in real life, by the way. So I sent the sketches, and the publisher said, we want you to illustrate the book. We love these sketches. Can you illustrate the book? And that was the last thing that I had thought of. But I did it, and I had to learn a lot, and I published it. And I stick to my motto, the message that is in the book. When you really believe in yourself, you can do anything. So that's where Maggie came from.
Your book is conveying a beautiful message.
Thank you.
Do you find it challenging not to repeat yourself when it comes to penning down the ideas?
So, as I said before, I've met so many different types of children from so many different parts of, Canada and the world, and they all come with different stories and different backgrounds, and every day in kindergarten is so different. We never have 2 days that are alike. So I just feel like I have so many stories, and I have so many goals and so many books that I've yet to write and publish. So at the moment, I don't find I just have so many ideas. I'm not yet repeating myself. I do find, however, within one story, if I tend to use, an adjective twice, my editor is amazing and she will call me on it. So after writing my second book with some of my rhyming, I think I had two adjectives that were the same in different verses, and she called me on it. And even just having someone close to work with who's a professional like that, I recommend, if you want your manuscript even looked at by a publisher, it cannot have one spelling mistake. You need an editor. Even if you have your degree in literacy, you need an editor. So she called me on that. And since then I've been very on top of, using synonyms and so on and so forth, and not getting repetitive. But it's amazing what editors can do. But yes, at the moment I have so many stories that I have up my sleeve. So far, I've been pretty creative with the process.
Have you read your book to your kindergarten students?
Yes, yes. It's hard to tell if they're just being nice. But they do laugh a lot, which is really cute. And the best part is, so for example, in Benjamin, showing them, like me, my picture at the end, and them kind of saying, "Hey, that's you." And they get so confused, but just having them put the pieces together, or, having their parent go and purchase the book, and then having my student come and say, "I read your book last night." And just having them make connections and relating to the book. It's just really, really special. So, and they make me laugh too. They thought that the beast was going to be a dinosaur in this book. So that was pretty cute. And it's a moose. It's not a dinosaur, but they get pretty funny as well.
Yes, these are the little moments that bring happiness.
Yeah, exactly.
Your book, Benjamin and the Backyard Beast, includes bonus educational material such as comprehension questions. Did you do this to help teachers like yourself get some useful resources if they choose to teach your book in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many reasons why I did this. According to Vygotsky's theory of multiple intelligences, there are 7 multiple intelligences. Every child learns differently. So I didn't want to just create a book that a child would sit down and read. I wanted them to see the pictures, interact with it, and then have so many different opportunities afterwards for learning. So I created this bonus pack, and maybe the story didn't interest them during the story, but maybe the animal facts did, or the games that they get to play in the bonus pack, where they have to search and find all the different components and all the different objects in the story. Maybe that will grasp their attention. Everybody learns in different ways, and I just wanted to give children a full hands-on learning experience. And I wanted them to be accountable for their learning. I wanted them to know, after this story, I'm going to be quizzing you. So you need to look for this, and you need to be paying attention all the time, because we're going to keep going back and back and back. And I just wanted to give them that experience where they need to keep revisiting the story over and over, because every time you read it, you're going to see something different in the background, or you're going to notice something different. And then, yes, of course, I wanted to hopefully give parents and teachers some helpful resources, where they didn't have to reinvent the wheel. They could have somewhere to look immediately, where they could go to a website, or they could have an activity that it could be a teachable moment, whether at home or in the classroom. Hopefully help out a few teachers with, their lesson plans or their unit plans. Everything correlates to the curriculum. So, and I just also hope that the Indigenous section in this book as well could speak to a lot of children. So because this is a Canadian-based book about my Canadian culture as a child, it's a true story about me as a child. walking, along the St. Lawrence River. I don't know if you can see the St. Lawrence River in the background. This is the homeland of the Haudenosaunee Mohawk Nation, and I wanted to honor them. And so I teamed up with an entire Indigenous team to write an Indigenous section of this book. They're from Akwesasne. And that's exactly what they did in this bonus pack as well, which if anyone has any questions about it, they can just follow me online, Erin Lee author. But that also, my intent for that was giving parents and teachers a starting point and starting that dialogue and giving them some resources by saying, we are giving you some websites and some information written by this Akwesasne team, which will hopefully introduce you, if you haven't familiarized yourself with the Mohawk Nation, it'll hopefully introduce you to them, and it'll give you a starting point to know where to look next. And of course, truth and reconciliation is a big focus in our curriculum. So I think that that could be a helpful tool for teachers, especially in classrooms.
Yes, these are materials that complement the book while also making it fun.
Yes, exactly.
What is the creative process like? What inspires you to pick up the pen and write?
I think there's no one answer to this. I was reflecting on, when I've been most inspired, and I think it could be anytime. I remember driving and having to, press record while driving and just record myself talk about all these rhyming verses, just spitting out ideas. I've also been jogging. I've been in the shower. I've been watching a movie. So I like to keep notepads close to me or, my phone. And I need to write down the idea as soon as I get it, because it'll just come to me. I think that is the positive part of having a creative mind is, sometimes I might be sort of lost in this other world, but it's because I'm coming up with my next big idea. And so I get the idea, I write it down, and then after that, I just write in chunks. That's how I wrote, especially Benjamin and the Backyard Beasts and Out of Season. A lot of it was just in chunks and not necessarily in order. Sometimes I'd write the middle and then I'd go to the end and then I'd go to the beginning and I'd write the beginning. Very few times did I write the beginning first in a story. I just do what comes to me because that's what flows. And then once my ideas are down, I walk away for quite a few weeks and I don't force it. And then I come back and I say, oh, why did I say that? I need to tweak that. And I rewrite the whole thing. And then that process just happens quite a bit. I often encourage people to just walk away from something for a while because your brain will just sort of redirect to something else. And then you can come back in a few weeks even and take another look at it and you'll have a completely different outlook on it. And that process happens for probably about 5 or 6 months while I'm writing a new book. And then after that, I just really, really focus on editing it myself and, my grammar, thinking about all of that stuff, my vocabulary. And then when I feel like it's somewhat, decent and ready for my editor, I send it to her. And I will say this to pretty much anyone listening, don't be offended when it comes back with scratches all over it. That's completely normal. I think for anyone, it's going to be all scratched out. For Maggie, I was quite discouraged. And then I spoke to a lot of other authors and I realized it's just totally normal. And then we just go back and forth for probably about 3 more months like that. And then of course, when that's ready, then the whole publishing team happens. But each book took me at least a year to publish. So it's quite the process, but it's very rewarding to be able to hold just one of your proudest accomplishments and be able to look at it every day.
Yes, that's a very intellectual, creative process.
Thank you.
You have an all girl band. Tell us a little bit about that. Like what role you play in the band.
Yeah. So I have two younger sisters. We're close in age and we're just very, very close. We're just best friends and we're all quite different. So we put our strengths together and we actually haven't played since COVID, but we were just talking about this the other day. We're 100% going to go back, but we were playing on a lot of local patios a few before COVID happened actually. And it was really, really fun. It took a lot of practice. But essentially it was mostly so I'm the oldest, and it was mostly my youngest sister and myself who would play, um, we'd sing vocals. So we'd sing harmony and we'd have a set list and it would be about 2 or 3 hours long. And I would play guitar and she would play piano. And then sometimes our middle sister would join us with piano as well. So we'd work together and we'd make some really fun music. So we hope to return back to that.
That looks so fun.
It really was. It was a really good
Yeah.
time.
How do you manage your time with so much on your plate?
That is a really great question. I am by no means an expert, but I have read a lot of novels and articles about time management and time blocking because that is everything. Um, I really try to stay organized and I try to plan ahead as much as possible, but in an ideal world, I mean, you've got to be flexible still, and life is going to throw things at you. But so I do try to leave some room for flexibility, of course, but I do really try to, at the beginning of each year, I roughly plan out my year. And then of course I have my planner. I'm a very visual learner. So it really helps to know how I learn and play off of that. And know my strengths, of course, and the areas that I need to work on. So I'm always reflecting. I'm always thinking, what didn't go well? How can I improve upon that? Um, and then of course, I'm always asking for help. No one person can do it all. You know, um, Somebody that you see on YouTube who maybe looks like they can do it all, or not YouTube, but like Instagram, that social media face, chances are they have a whole team helping them out behind them, supporting them, and they're not afraid to ask for help. So I do have a very supportive publishing team, very strong family circle, friends, who are, I vocalize and I say, when I'm feeling anxious or stressed, I'll tell them, I need help. Can you help me with this or that? And just knowing that, when you ask for help, it's great that you did it. They might not always do things the way you do them. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I once read about is they might not always do things the way that you expect them to, or the way that you would have done it, but you got help with that and you got that support and you reached out and that's the important thing. So, that's sort of the main takeaways that I've kind of gotten from my research over the years. But I think in the end, it just helps to know that, I'm only human and I make mistakes too. And I'm just doing the best I can with my daily life. And I think forgiveness as well is the best thing, giving yourself grace and but also having a clear expectation of your goals, on the daily and just not forgetting that. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Those are some great life advices.
Thank you. I'm always learning. So, but that's what I've learned so far.
Before we end our interview, please share where we can find your books.
Absolutely. So I do have a website. It's www.erinleeauthor.com. So that's ERINLEE author.com. I do ship my books and products anywhere in Canada, or to some places in the States as well. My books can also be found on Amazon. So I have Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime, you can get it in just a few days on your doorstep. So I think Amazon worldwide. And I do have my books in stores as well. So that's listed on my website. So essentially, all the information can be found on my website. And then, of course, I do have my Instagram. It's Erin Lee Author. And I post daily educational activities. I post lots of ideas for, early years learners. And then, of course, I've got my book updates and I sell products as well to go with my books. So, when people buy the book, maybe my kinesthetic learners, my hands-on learners, they might want to, actually, I have it right here. They might want to interact with the Winnie doll. So we've got a little Winnie doll that, kids can role play with the doll after they read the book. So it just helps to elevate that experience. So I sell lots of products like that on my website as well. And I just give lots of daily updates on my reels. So I encourage anybody to follow me on Instagram and reach out and say hi. I love to connect with people all the time.
Awesome. With this, we end our chat. Thank you so much for joining in. It was fun talking to you.
Thank you so much. I love what you do. I appreciate you reaching out to me. It was so wonderful to chat with you. And congratulations on all your
Thank
success
you.
and keep doing what you're doing. It's absolutely amazing.